hijabs, hoodies, afros, locks, teddy bear liquor bottle shrines, rocks, tanks, prayer rugs, church pews, Mexican corn stands, blood, sweat, and tears, police batons, gas masks, and bullets create graffiti on corners, murals that salute freedom or death for liberty, be it Inglewood or Egypt, Bed-Stuy or Baghdad, Syria or Liberia, the West Bank or the west side of Chicago, where food and liquor stores still occupy the block, while police and community watchmen justify why they shot Emmett Till, Malice Green, Rakia Boyd, and Trayvon Martin. Better not wear that hoodie while shopping for a carton of whatever they selling in your food desert, because your soul is dessert and will be dissected and consumed on the Fox Evening News, while we sing the blues the new Jim Crow caged bird sings, because he's tired of occupying his misery and of our marching. He want to fly to a higher consciousness, but his school on academic probation. They gave him medicine, diagnosed him with a felony and mental retardation, so he refuses to cease the firing. Nobody's hiring. In Illinois, 67 is a new age when you retiring. Class lines have blurred. Those who used to have not. Pensions being snatched. Those who never had keep their hands stretched. Social services being cut. Sterilization clinics giving out pills to numb the womb. Young girls referring to their vaginas as tombs. Thinking protests are temporary and trendy. Will rock a t-shirt and carry a poster, and 2 weeks later it's back to normal. But they say times are changing. The revolution is becoming second nature. Causes are combining. People carrying torches, hope burning from their hands, attaching explosive devices because they keep stealing their lands in the name of freedom. Hijabs, hoodies, afros, locks, teddy bear liquor bottle shrines, rocks, tanks, prayer rugs, church pews, Mexican corn stands, blood, sweat, and tears, police batons, gas masks, and bullets create graffiti on corners.
It's not easy finding a personal example of racism that I've experienced in my life. I was raised in a white neighborhood with white friends and went to a predominantly white school. Sure, there were more urban towns around mine, but they were only drive-through towns to get to another neighborhood. And you better believe that when we drove through these towns, we would roll up our windows, turn the Kanye West track down, and lock all the doors in case one of those brothers tries something. My father grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, one of these drive-through towns, and he's no worse for the wear in spite of it. He worked and still works around a largely African-American community. He does not call black people lazy, but he does say that it's a travesty that there are African Americans out there just sitting outside 7-Eleven looking for a handout, perpetuating a negative stereotype. Whenever he's walking into the convenience store and is stopped by a gentleman asking for spare change, my father gives him his business card and tells them to come for a job, knowing full well that his company would and has hired ex-convicts and would have no trouble hiring a few individuals with bad credit and drug problems. But they never show up for a job. They continue to sit outside 7-Eleven asking for spare change. But who are we to look down upon them because their school systems aren't winning blue ribbons for excellence like ours? Their parents do not care as much as ours do. While I was a white kid growing up in a white neighborhood, one of my best friends growing up was telling a different story. My friend Matt was an African American living in Westfield, New Jersey by way of Charlotte, North Carolina. We had black students at our school, but he hung around with us instead. For a lot of people, he was just their black friend because every white kid needs one, right? Well, to me, he was and is one of my closest friends, and I always knew that he would have my back whenever I needed him. It was late one night around 2:30 in the morning, and Matt and I were on our way to get some late night eats at a diner in a neighboring town. This wasn't one of those drive-through towns I mentioned earlier, quite the opposite really. Back in the early 1900s, the town of Clark, New Jersey was rumored to have a very large Ku Klux Klan community. Whether or not this is true, there are still areas of town that are not very friendly towards African Americans, and this diner is one of them. Just walking into the bathroom, you would see neo-Nazi symbols all over, racial slurs written in Sharpie on the walls, and swastikas on the mirror. Personally, I never had a problem at the diner, and up until that night, neither had Matt. We got out of my car and walked up to the front door. Standing behind the glass door was a man who was not wearing anything that identified himself as a worker as much as it did a patron at the diner. He looked right at Matt, cracked the door, and told us, "We aren't open. We're closed for cleaning." This would be all fine and good if the diner wasn't a 24-hour diner, and it wasn't a restaurant filled with people sitting behind the racist guarding the door. Matt never said anything about the incident because I'm sure it wasn't the first and won't be the last time that he experienced something like that. It took me the walk back to the car to even realize why we weren't allowed to eat. It's these small events that open your eyes to racism that still exists in our lives. People like to say it's gone, and people like to separate themselves from slavery. As Louis C.K., comedian, says, every year, white people add 100 years onto when slavery really was. Just because African Americans have the right to vote and slavery is abolished doesn't mean racism is not around. Events like the one I witnessed with Matt show the impact that racism still has today.